Welcome to the Council of Better Business Bureau's podcast, Better Business, Better Series, where we will explore top-of-mind topics with business and industry leaders to understand the leading trends and innovations that continue to push the envelope in today's marketplace.
For the Better Business, Better Series podcast, I'm Will Johnson. On today's episode, we're taking a look at one of our largest business categories, retail. And if there's one commonality within the industry, it's the large number of public-facing employees that retail businesses hire. In many cases, these are first-time job seekers. And with that in mind, the retail industry has launched a new program to prepare and build the next generation of its workforce. Here to tell us more about it is Ellen Davis, SVP of Research and Strategic Initiatives with the National Retail Federation and Executive Director with the NRF Foundation. Hi, Ellen. Thanks for joining us.
Hi. Thanks for having me, Will.
So first of all, let me put you on the spot. I understand you're one of the people credited with coining Cyber Monday. Is that right?
Yes. It was a complete fluke. I was in my early 20s, and we identified this crazy trend of people shopping online the Monday after Thanksgiving from work, primarily because nobody had broadband at the time. It was a slow holiday season. We coined the phrase, and it just took off from there. So it's been really cool to see people embrace that.
A nice feather in your cap. That's very cool.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about what the issue here today is: the retail workforce and also this Rise Up initiative. So, summer's coming. This is a time when a lot of youngsters and young people, college folks, are looking for jobs. The industry offers a large number of jobs for people who are perhaps just getting into the workforce for the first time, right?
Mm-hmm. Retail is the first job for about 33% of Americans. If you think about most of us either in high school or in college, on spring break or Christmas break, looking for something to do, a way to make some money, retail provides a lot of tremendous first opportunities for folks. And not only, that first job that could lead into a career or help you make some money, but also the transferable skills that everybody knows you learn in retail: conflict management, the ability to work as part of a team, follow directions. There are so many elements that are really critical to a role in retail that really helps prime those first job candidates for success really anywhere they want to go.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about the huge population of people who start that way. I know I went the way of working in restaurants, but I'm sure I put in a few applications for some retail businesses and just didn't go that road. But.
Well, and restaurants are very similar to retail, too, in terms of service and being customer-facing. There's a lot of synergies there.
So along those lines, we know that the experience can be a real eye-opener for somebody who's working in a role like that for the first time. And for the customer, it's an in-person introduction to the business, the brand, whatever store they're shopping in. Tell us why this face-to-face experience can be so important to the customer. I mean, there's obvious reasons. They want to have a good experience when they walk in a store.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because the role of a store associate has changed today transformationally from 10 or 20 years ago, where it used to be you walked into a store, people didn't necessarily know what they were looking for. They had no idea what options existed for them, no idea how much things cost. And today, because of the internet, you've got a much more educated, sophisticated customer who's walking into your store, and they expect a different level of service, and they expect a different experience. So one of the challenges of retailers, and one of the challenges that we took on, is how do you make sure that the person in the store helping a customer is being able to understand where that customer might be coming from. So, how do you make sure that the store associate has the understanding and access to technology, or certainly an understanding of different payment methods? I mean, things that 20 years ago wouldn't have even been part of the dialogue. It's really interesting because the role of the store associate and stores in general haven't really changed, but what's needed to be successful from a customer perspective from those people is very, very different.
And I'm sure this isn't true across the board, but I'm thinking that maybe some of those customers who come in are people who actually want to have that experience of talking to someone and not just going online and ordering something.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's, we still, 90% of all transactions still happen in a store. So even though a lot of people use the web to browse and buy in some cases, but a lot of them do a ton of research, but especially before you're buying furniture, a TV, a piece of jewelry, for the most part, many people will leverage the web to try and make a good decision. But the challenge for, I think, a lot of store associates is, when you've got a customer who knows more about a TV than you do because you sell 200 different models, how on earth do you create the right experience for that person who is still looking for a certain level of service and help that is the reason why they're there? So from our perspective, that's been really important, is thinking about how has the role of a store associate changed, recognizing that the need for customer service hasn't.
So the job has certainly shifted and grown over time. It's almost like somebody who's 18, 19, 20, or much older, depending on when they decide to take a job like this. It's a lot of responsibility that might not have been there, or as you say, it's a shifting role over the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm. It's a shifting role, and understanding how the industry is changing is really important as you think about, all that exists beyond the store footprint that maybe you didn't have to think about before.
And did you say 90% of transactions?
90% of transactions
That's shocking.
still happen in a store.
Great.
Yep. I mean, the average person, I don't know, it's around 50% of many major purchases are researched online. But still, if you think about major purchases, small purchases, groceries, most of that's still in the store.
And I know, well, I certainly leave a fair number of things in shopping carts. So I know what that experience is like. And then you get an email saying, do you want to finish this? And no, you've gone off and maybe bought it in an actual store. So tell us about Rise Up and what the primary goals are. What does Rise Up stand for?
Sure. Rise Up stands for Retail Industry Skills and Education. It is a program that will help people get into the workforce by becoming trained and skilled, get their first job in retail, and then over time advance into more promising careers. Rise Up has 3 goals. The first is really to help people become a bridge for the people in this country, primarily who are looking for a first job or a second chance. There are 700 or 600,000 open positions in retail right now, and there are millions of people looking for work. So how do we build a bridge between people who want jobs and an industry that has 600,000 jobs to fill? We also really knew that when we built this program, we needed to build something that was right for the business. So a lot of retail companies have their own learning and development programs, but how can we train people before they even get hired so they have a higher chance of success? Or how do we create a program that a small business might use who might not have their own training and learning and development program that would be more turnkey for them as they're bringing in a high school student who has never run a cash register or practiced elementary customer service. And then the third goal is really for us to continue to demonstrate retail as an industry of mobility and opportunity. So in addition to the first credential we just created called Retail Industry Fundamentals, we'll be creating more over time that will help people not only understand that there is a path in retail, but give them the path to get there. So if I wanted to be a store manager, eventually, this is what I need to do, and these are the skills that I need to develop in order to make that happen for myself.
Okay, so that's a nice segue. We want to look at this from the angle of the business owner, whether it's small, medium, or even large people who are looking for employees to work in retail. So you mentioned some of the goals there, the 1, 2, 3, 4 goals I think you mentioned. So how are they taught? Do you bring people into a setting, in a classroom
yes.
for future employees?
There are a couple of different ways people can go through Retail Industry Fundamentals. The first is online. We have a self-study program where somebody can sign up and go through 8 to 10 hours of training and then take the exam. That is a very independently led element. In many cases, though, Retail Industry Fundamentals will be taught by a workforce development group, a nonprofit, maybe a small business, another community organization like a church that is training people to help prepare them for that first job or the second chance. So in that case, we've created all sorts of curriculum, training materials, guidelines, PowerPoint presentations that will really make it easy for those trainers and educators to help the population of learners that they have understand the retail industry and the skills they need to be successful.
So even before they've ever put in a job application, try this out, take the course,
Yep.
and you're hopefully much better poised to go in and get a job.
That's right. That's the goal. A lot of this is, the retail industry, depending upon where you look in the country, might have a ton of applicants. How do you stand out? So that's part of it. Another challenge could be, there are people who aren't necessarily from the most, fortunate circumstances who need a little bit of extra rounding out, if you will, from a training perspective in terms of, how to present on the job, how to interview, what to expect in your first, 30 days or 90 days so that you stay. All of those elements up front, even before you get hired or apply, are really helpful to help a person become successful in that role.
And we talk about this from time to time, but it just makes such a huge difference, that experience as a customer going into some place. And I mean, in some cases, it can kind of make or break your day.
Oh, for sure.
Depending on how it goes.
And on the flip side, too. I mean,
Sure.
if you look at the resiliency that a lot of store associates are required to have with a customer who might be having a bad day or got their order wrong or couldn't find a place to park. I mean, I think that the store experience, on both sides is is challenging. And I think to the extent that we can make sure that store associates are trained to be prepared for those experiences, the better the customer experience will be.
So what businesses are currently on board, if you could mention some, and how can others get involved in Rise Up?
Sure. We have over 20 retailers right now who have pledged their support for Rise Up. 5 of the top 10 retailers in this country, everybody from Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, Target, Macy's,
Wow.
Are all pledging their support. They're working with us and trying to help people get trained and credentialed and then help them find employment around the country. And that's what's so cool about retail. I mean, if you look at any retailer if you look at any city around the country, I think you'd be hard pressed not to find a retailer that's a part of this program. So, in small markets, we have Pilot Flying J, we have Tractor Supply Company. Large markets, we've got Neiman Marcus, we've got the Container Store. So from our perspective, retail touches so many different parts of America, and we know that these skills are important for a first job, but also transferable. And that's why for us, it was really exciting to bring so many different types of companies together to help build this and promote it.
And let me back up a little bit, and I should have asked this sooner, as far as what businesses you work with, how small can you go? I mean, if I have 1 or 2 stores, does that qualify? It's still retail, right?
It's still retail.
Okay.
We've got 10,000 or more members with only one location.
Okay.
And in fact, most retailers do have one location. But I think the benefit for a lot of them is in a program like this is we built this based off of the most sophisticated training at companies like the Container Store, Walmart, Neiman Marcus. And for a small business to be able to take advantage of that, that's pretty cool. So this is an example of how the industry really came together, but small businesses can tremendously benefit.
So the National Retail Federation went out and talked specifically to all these different businesses and based this program on their training program.
Yes, we based it on their training programs, competency models, their needs. Exactly. Because we knew that, anybody can create a credential, but if you don't create a credential that's valuable for the business, it's not worth the paper that it's written on.
And it's still one of those jobs, I guess most jobs are like this, where you don't know what it's like until you actually walk in the door and start doing it.
That's right. And, especially if you think about the perception of what retail jobs are. I mean, when I was in retail in the 1990s, those jobs are very different than they were then versus today. So I think it's important, for people to understand new store associates. What is inventory? What does it mean? What are different supply chain models? Why is that important? If a customer can't find a red sweater in a size small during the holiday season, how do you help them find it on your website and have it either shipped to the store or shipped to them? Those are shopping experiences that didn't exist 15 or 20 years ago. And so helping an incoming associate understand how to interact that way with the customer and why that's important can mean all the difference in the world for success for that person.
I'll admit I'm not the greatest shopper in the world, but I do go out there, and I do love it when they call the other stores and find stuff for me too.
Yes, and in many cases that's now automated, so they should be able to tell you at the push of a button. Yes,
All right.
It is.
All right, so for those in retail who want to participate, you talked about some that are already involved. What can they expect from the program? How can they get involved? Where do they need to go?
Sure. Well, many retailers right now can go on our website, nrf.com/riseup, find out more information about the program, register their existing associates or incoming associates if they want. Many of them also can reach out to us, talk about nonprofits that we might be working with already or community groups who might be putting people through this training, who they could hire. There are a number of different ways that retailers of all sizes can get involved. We'll be announcing more this summer that is a little bit more specific to certain markets and places where we plan to make a big impact, but anybody all around the country can use this right now.
And then measures of success, you'll get feedback from the businesses, from employees.
That's right. We're in the middle of a pretty big impact study that's been funded by the Walmart Foundation that will help us demonstrate the value of this credential to the business, because we know that ultimately that is what will help the businesses determine if this is something that they want to formally recognize in the hiring process. Our goal is that, a company would guarantee you an interview or a job or, put you higher on the priority list if you have a credential from the Rise Up suite. And so it's really important for us to measure this and make sure that it works the way it says it does.
Hearing about it today, it makes so much sense. I mean, if you've been mowing lawns or washing dishes, whatever you've been doing through high school, and then you're really ready to go out and get another job, having this information is invaluable. It's stuff that you just wouldn't be aware of until you start doing it.
I think people really underestimate the sophistication of frontline work. It's very difficult. I've had somebody say to me, no matter what industry I'm in, I will always hire a barista. Because
right.
There are just certain skills that you learn
Yeah.
that you can't get from mowing lawns and washing dishes.
And when you meet those people in a store and you're working with them, you can tell the really good ones
That's
are
right.
really good.
Yep.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Ellen Davis, before you come up with another Cyber Monday, will you share it with us here?
Sure.
Or whether you're a team of people you're with coming up with these great ideas?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Ellen Davis, thank you very much. Ellen is SVP of Research and Strategic Initiatives, also Executive Director with the NRF Foundation. If you'd like to learn more about the Better Business Bureau, visit us at bbb.org. Ellen, thanks again.
Thank you.
For the Better Business, Better Series podcast, I'm Will Johnson.
You just enjoyed Better Business, Better Series podcast. Be sure to tune in next month for a brand new episode. To learn more about our other shows, visit betterbusiness.blueberry.com. That's betterbusiness.blueberry.com and subscribe. The thoughts and opinions expressed on this podcast are the views and opinions of the guests, not those of the Better Business Bureau, Council of Better Business Bureaus, or program affiliates. This podcast is for information and educational purposes only and is copyrighted with all rights reserved. This podcast is protected by Blueberry's Terms of Service.